Princess Lyra sat by the window of her room and looked at the twin moons of Alria. The sky was deep purple with silver streaks of clouds moving slowly across the horizon. The wind made the crystal leaves of the palace gardens shimmer below. She tried to feel calm, but her heart beat fast. Today she had received news that changed her life forever. The humans wanted a marriage to seal peace between their colonies and the Alrian Empire. She was to be the bride. Lyra had read all the files about humans. The more she read, the more terrified she felt. Humans were strong, ruthless, and dangerous. In the records, they never gave up. They could survive anything, even battles that would destroy other species. They had fought wars across dozens of planets, and their ships could take more damage than any other fleet in the galaxy. Soldiers had survived explosions, poison, even being trapped in fire. The reports said they could kill their enemies without hesitation. Many people in her empire called them monsters. Lyra imagined her future husband as a cruel man, someone who would see her only as a prize or a tool for his people. The thought made her stomach tighten. Her mother, Queen Ariella, had tried to comfort her. "Lyra," she said, "this marriage is not just for you. It is for the Empire. It could save thousands of lives." Lyra nodded, but it did not make her fear smaller. She loved her people and would do anything for them. But the thought of living with a human she did not know, a human called Ruthless, filled her with dread. The council had sent pictures and files about the chosen human. His name was Jason Carter. He had fought in the Orion Border War, one of the bloodiest conflicts in human history. He had led troops against 3 enemy fleets at the same time. Some reports said he had never shown mercy to the enemy, even when they tried to surrender. His face in the images was strong and scarred. One eyebrow had a thin mark from an old wound. His eyes were dark, serious, and cold in the pictures. Lyra shivered. She did not know if he was truly cruel, but the files made him look that way. There were whispers among the palace attendants. Some said he had killed without regret. Some said he had made hard choices to save civilians. But those stories seemed smaller. The violent stories were louder. Lyra felt trapped. She could not refuse the marriage without risking war, and she did not want to marry a monster. She wished she could meet him first, see if the rumors were true. At night, Lyra walked in the palace garden. The glowing flowers lit the paths softly. She liked to come here when she felt anxious. The sound of the small fountains and the movement of the crystal leaves usually calmed her, but tonight it did not. She thought about the humans, about Jason Carter, and about what the council expected her to do. She thought about all the people who depended on her and her choices. She loved her empire and her people, and she could not let fear stop her. After a long walk, she decided she would accept the marriage. She would do it for duty, for peace, for the lives of thousands. Even though she made her decision, her fear did not go away. She imagined what it would be like to live with Jason. She imagined him as cold, always watching her, always judging her. She imagined being trapped with someone who might hurt her if she made a mistake. The thought made her hands shake. Later, she returned to her room. The palace attendants tried to comfort her. One of them, a young woman named Lyriel, held her hand and said, "Princess, he may not be as cruel as you think. Humans have feelings too. Some are brave and kind, even in battle." Lyra smiled faintly, but she could not stop thinking about the files. The stories of human battles were terrifying. She knew that humans could survive anything, but she also knew that they could take many lives along the way. Lyra's father had died when she was young. Her mother ruled alone, and Lyra had been trained to lead someday. She knew that leadership required sacrifices. She had given up her own freedom many times for her empire. This was just another sacrifice, only bigger. She whispered to herself, "I will do this for them. I will be strong." She spent the rest of the night reading more about humans. She tried to find any sign that Jason Carter might be gentle or kind. She found one small report hidden in a long battle summary. It said that he had rescued civilians from a burning city during a battle. He had carried children to safety, even though the streets were full of enemies. Lyra's heart softened slightly. Maybe he was not just a warrior, maybe he could care. But the stories of battle and death were stronger in her mind. She went to sleep with a heavy heart, dreaming of a tall, strong man with dark eyes and a scar over his eyebrow. In her dream, he was both terrifying and unknown. The next morning, the Queen called Lyra to the council hall. The room was wide, with high ceilings and walls that glimmered like crystal. The council members were waiting, serious and quiet. Lyra felt her stomach tighten again. The Queen spoke first. "Princess, the human will arrive in our capital soon. You must be ready to meet him. This is our chance for peace." Lyra nodded, trying to keep her voice calm. She wanted to ask questions, to see if she could learn more about him, but the council did not give her time. They spoke only of protocol, of rules, and of the importance of this marriage. After the meeting, Lyra walked through the palace halls. She saw guards preparing for the human ship's arrival. Banners with human symbols were being hung alongside Alrian flags. She felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. Soon, she would see the man called Ruthless. Soon, she would see if the rumors were true. She tried to imagine him as a person, not a legend, not a monster. It was hard. She did not know how to look at someone she was supposed to marry when everything she had learned about his kind told her he might be dangerous. Lyra spent the day in her room pacing and thinking. She thought about how humans lived on distant planets, how different their world must be from Alria. She imagined the forests and oceans, the cities full of lights, the strange animals and machines. She wondered if Jason liked music, if he could read books, if he had friends who laughed with him. She wanted to believe he was more than a warrior. She wanted to hope that maybe, just maybe, he could be kind. The sun set and the twin moons rose again. Lyra stood by the window, watching the pale light reflect on the crystal walls of the palace. She whispered to herself, "I do not know him, but I must try. For my people, for my empire, I will try." The fear in her heart was still strong, but a small spark of courage appeared. She would meet Jason Carter soon. She would see the man behind the rumors. And maybe she would find that he was not the monster everyone imagined. As she closed her eyes, she tried to imagine the first meeting. Would he smile, or would he look serious? Would he bow, or just stand tall and silent? She did not know. The uncertainty made her nervous, but it also made her curious. She had never met a human before. She had never spoken to someone so strong and so feared. She did not know what to expect, and that made her heart beat faster. Lyra fell asleep thinking of the stories, the files, and the dark eyes of the human warrior. She did not know what awaited her, but she promised herself that she would be brave. No matter what she saw, she would face it for her people. She would meet the human called Ruthless, and she would try to see the person beneath the fear. It was the beginning of a path she had not chosen, but she would walk it with courage, even if her heart trembled. Jason Carter sat alone in the small cabin of his ship. The hum of the engines filled the space, but it did not bother him. He stared at the window, watching the stars move slowly past. The war was over, but it did not feel like victory. He remembered the soldiers who had died under his command, the civilians caught in the crossfire, the towns that were destroyed because of decisions he had made. Every face he remembered, every scream haunted him. He had led his men through impossible battles, and he had survived. Others had not. The humans called him a hero, but he did not feel like one. He thought about the choices he had made. Some were necessary, some were mistakes. He had done what he thought was right to protect as many people as possible, but the cost had been heavy. His uniform still carried the faint scent of smoke from the last battle. His hands were scarred from burns and shrapnel. He rubbed the edge of the thin scar above his eyebrow and sighed. A soft knock came at the door. It was Admiral Collins, a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. "Jason, may I come in?" he asked. Jason nodded. The Admiral entered, followed by a human diplomat. Both carried tablets with messages from Earth. The diplomat cleared his throat. "Captain Carter, we have an urgent message from the Alrian Empire." Jason listened as they explained the proposal. The humans had offered peace with Alria, but the council insisted on a marriage to seal it. Jason was to marry the princess, Lyra, eldest daughter of the queen. He felt a weight in his chest. He had never been a part of anything like this. He had fought wars, led troops, survived battles, but he had never been a husband. He had never been asked to represent humanity in such a personal and important way. "They want me to marry her?" he asked quietly. "Yes," said the diplomat. "This is not just a political gesture. It is a matter of life and death. If the marriage fails, the Empire may reject our peace. We could lose everything." Jason leaned back in his chair. He did not want to marry anyone. He had no family, no wife, no children. His only family was his older sister, Linda, who lived on a quiet farming world. She had always worried about him, especially when he went into battle. Jason loved her letters and small gifts from home. She had sent him a tray of small plants once, and he kept them in his cabin as reminders of the life he fought for. He looked at the stars again and thought about Alria. It was a beautiful world, far from the human colonies he knew. Forests glowed softly at night, rivers reflected the twin moons, and cities were made of crystal and light. He wondered what Lyra was like. He had seen her picture in the files, standing in her silver robes, smiling faintly in public ceremonies. She looked kind, gentle, and cautious. He could see the strength in her eyes, but also the fear. He knew fear well. He had felt it in battle many times. The diplomat and admiral waited for his answer. Jason finally spoke. "I will go," he said slowly. "But I will not do this for myself. I will do it to protect my people and to prevent more deaths. I do not want power or titles. I want peace." The admiral nodded. "That is all we ask. The Empire needs someone they can trust. You are the best human for this." Jason spent the next hours preparing. He studied Alrian culture from every available file. He learned how to bow, how to speak politely, how to avoid gestures that might offend. He memorized simple phrases in their language, practiced in the mirror until the words sounded right. He wanted to show respect. He wanted to make Lyra feel safe, even before they met. He also read more about Lyra. The reports showed her helping refugees, attending council meetings, and caring for her people. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and brave in her own way. He felt a small spark of curiosity about her. He wondered how she would react to a human. Would she be scared, angry, or curious? He did not know. He only knew that he had to protect her. That night, he went to the small gym in the ship. He ran on the treadmill, lifted weights, and practiced combat drills. He was not training for war. He was training to stay calm and ready for any situation. He had learned in battle that the strongest soldiers were not just those who could fight, but those who could think clearly under pressure. He ran, thinking about Alria, about the princess, and about the people who depended on him to make the right choices. Later, he sat again by the window and wrote a short message to his sister. He told her about the mission, about the unusual duty he had been given, and asked her to pray for him. He had never asked anyone to pray before, but he felt the need for some hope, some luck, as he faced the unknown. The next day, Jason attended a briefing with diplomats and security officers. They explained the route to the Alrian capital, the expected reception, and the security measures in place. The human and Alrian ships would travel together for safety. The Council of Alria was cautious. They had heard stories about humans, and many still feared them. Jason understood. He had seen the fear in the eyes of civilians when humans landed on distant planets in the past. Humans were strong, sometimes dangerous, but also protective. He spent time speaking to the security officers, learning their concerns and giving advice. He wanted to show that he was not a cold warrior, but someone careful and responsible. He explained how to use non-lethal methods if possible, how to organize civilians in emergencies, and how to protect important people without causing unnecessary harm. Many officers were surprised. They expected a human to act only with strength, not thought. Jason's calm, careful nature made them trust him. During the long hours before arrival, Jason practiced more. He rehearsed his bow, his greeting, and simple phrases to say to the princess. He imagined meeting her for the first time. He tried to picture her fear, her curiosity, and the way she might look at him. He knew she had never met a human and that she might expect a monster. He hoped to show her that he was not what she imagined. He also thought about the life he had lived. Battle, loss, responsibility. He had made many enemies, but he had also saved many lives. He remembered carrying wounded soldiers from burning ships, helping civilians escape from bombed cities and protecting his own team, even when it meant risking his life. He realized that humans were not just fighters. They were capable of care, sacrifice, and loyalty. He wanted Lyra to see that side of humanity. As the ship traveled closer to Alria, Jason stood at the viewport and looked at the planet below. It was beautiful, with floating cities, glowing rivers, and vast forests. He felt both awe and nervousness. He had never been to such a place. He had never been part of something so political, so personal. He breathed deeply, trying to calm himself. He whispered quietly, "I will protect her. I will do everything I can to make her safe. Even if she does not trust me, I will keep my promise." He thought again about the rumors that surrounded him in Alrian reports. Ruthless, unbroken, dangerous. He knew the truth. He was not ruthless for pleasure. He was careful, responsible, and sometimes harsh only when necessary to save lives. He hoped that Lyra would see the difference. He knew it might take time. He did not expect her to trust him immediately, but he wanted her to feel safe. That was the first step. During the journey, Jason also learned about Alrian traditions. He studied the ways they showed respect, how they valued honesty, patience, and careful thinking. He knew he had to move slowly. He could not use force to impress anyone. He had to show his character through small actions, through words, and through attention. He hoped Lyra would notice these things. He hoped she would see him as a man, not just a warrior. He spent hours thinking about the future. If the marriage went as planned, he would have to live among aliens, learn their ways, and build trust with people who feared him. It was not just about one princess. It was about an empire, peace between two civilizations, and preventing war. He understood the weight of his duty, and he accepted it. He was a soldier, yes, but now his mission was not only to fight, but to protect and build trust. As the stars passed, Jason felt a small calm growing inside him. He could not control everything. He could not predict every reaction or every fear. He could only control his own actions, his own words, and his own choices. He promised himself that he would not break her trust. He promised that he would act carefully, respectfully, and honestly. He would meet her with patience and with understanding. That night, as the ship moved closer to Alria, Jason sat quietly in his cabin. He looked at a small plant from his sister's farm, a reminder of home and life beyond battle. He thought about Lyra, the princess he had never met, and about the empire she protected. He knew that rumors might make her afraid, that the stories of human ruthlessness might cloud her mind. But he also knew that actions spoke louder than words. He would show her who he truly was, one careful choice at a time. As he prepared to sleep, he whispered softly, "I hope she will see me as I am. Not as a monster, not as a story. I hope she will see a man who only wants to protect and to honor her people. That is all I can do." He closed his eyes and let the stars outside shine through the window, feeling both fear and hope for what awaited him on Alria. Jason's ship slowly entered orbit over Alria. Below him, the planet shone like a jewel. Glowing rivers twisted through forests, cities floated above the land on crystal platforms, and the twin moons reflected silver light across the water. Alrian battle cruisers moved carefully around his vessel, watching his every action. He stayed calm, hands resting lightly on the railing of his small viewing area. He knew he was being watched, and he knew that the people below expected a soldier who could fight, a human they feared. But he was careful, not reckless. He wanted the first impression to be one of respect, not force. Inside the palace, Princess Lyra stood with her mother and the council. She wore her silver ceremonial robes and a crown of glowing vines. Her hands were folded, her heart racing. Today she would meet Jason Carter, the human they called Ruthless. She had read the files again and again. She had seen pictures of his scar, his dark eyes, and his strong jaw. Every detail made her stomach tighten. She imagined him as cruel, unfeeling, someone who would see her as property, not as a person. She tried to calm herself, but she could not stop her mind from racing. The landing platform was enormous, made of transparent crystal and metal. Human security officers and Alrian guards stood in precise formation. Jason's ship docked carefully, and he stepped out in his white uniform. He had no weapons on him, only a communicator at his side. He walked slowly, with hands visible, showing he meant no harm. Every step was measured. He bowed lightly when approaching the first Alrian officer and spoke in careful Alrian, greeting them politely. The words sounded strange to his ears, but he had practiced until they felt natural. Lyra watched from the palace balcony above. From a distance, Jason seemed larger than life. His scars, his strong build, his serious expression made him look exactly like the rumors had said. Ruthless, unbroken, dangerous. She felt her breath catch. She expected him to be harsh, to stare at her like prey, to judge her with his eyes. But as he moved closer, she noticed small things she did not expect. His steps were careful, controlled. His eyes, though dark, did not burn with anger. They scanned the area quickly, not to intimidate, but to watch for danger. He was aware of everyone around him, not only as soldiers or civilians, but as living beings. When Jason reached the base of the palace steps, he paused. He could see Lyra on the balcony above. He bowed lightly, hand over heart, a gesture he had chosen after studying Alrian customs. He spoke in soft words, honoring her status and the empire. The sound of his voice was calm, steady, and polite. It did not carry the harshness he had imagined from the files. It carried care and thought. Lyra's stomach twisted. The man she had imagined as a monster was standing before her, bowing respectfully. His eyes were still strong and serious, but there was no cruelty in them. He was not smiling, but he did not need to. His expression showed responsibility, caution, and perhaps even understanding. She felt a flicker of something she did not recognize. Curiosity. She wanted to see more, to know if the kindness she sensed was real. The Queen stepped forward. "Captain Jason Carter," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Welcome to Alria. We hope your journey was safe." Jason bowed again, then straightened. "Your Majesty," he said, "it was safe, and I am honored to be here. I understand the responsibility of this mission, and I will do my best to honor your people and your traditions." After the formal greeting, a translator allowed Lyra and Jason to speak privately in a small garden near the palace. It was a quiet space, with soft lights hovering above the plants. Fountains made gentle sounds, and crystal paths reflected the moonlight. Even though there were still guards at a distance, The garden felt safe and calm. Lyra took a deep breath. "I have read the reports," she said quietly, "about humans, about you. I have to admit, I am afraid." Jason nodded, meeting her gaze carefully. "I understand," he said. "Humans are strong. Some are ruthless in war. But I am not that man. I have fought battles, yes, but I have never fought for cruelty. I have fought to protect." Lyra studied him. She had imagined someone cold, harsh, unfeeling. Instead, she saw a man who seemed tired, thoughtful, and careful. His eyes held memories of pain and loss, not triumph. He did not look at her as a prize, but as a person. "Why should I believe that?" she asked softly. "Why should I trust a human when all I have learned tells me you are dangerous?" Jason paused, choosing his words. "Because I do not expect you to trust me right away. I will show you who I am through my actions, not my words. I will not harm you. I will not force you. If you feel unsafe, I will step back. But if you let me, I will protect you, your people, and your empire with everything I have. Not for glory, not for power, but because it is right." Lyra felt her fear shift slightly. The calm, honesty, and care in his voice made her stomach tighten, but differently now. It was not fear alone. It was something new. Hope. She had expected him to intimidate her, but he spoke like someone who valued her life and her choices. She realized that maybe the rumors had twisted the truth. Maybe humans were strong, yes, but they could also be kind and loyal. Over the next days, Jason followed palace customs carefully. He bowed before elders, spoke politely, and learned the names of guards and servants. He did not rush, and he did not force himself into ceremonies. Every action was deliberate, respectful, and calm. Lyra watched quietly from a distance. Each time she saw him choose patience over aggression, care over power, she felt her fear slowly fade. One morning, she watched him visit a healing center in the city. Wounded Alrian soldiers were recovering from injuries, some missing limbs, others burned or cut. Jason spoke with each patient carefully. He asked about their pain, their families, and how they were coping. He offered advice, drawing from human medical training. He helped adjust bandages and checked that supplies were safe. When a young soldier with a missing arm thanked him, Jason replied gently, "It is my honor. You have fought to protect your people. I am the one who should thank you." Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. The man she had feared, the human called ruthless, was showing care for her people. He did not need to. He could have focused only on the formal duties or avoided the wounded soldiers entirely. Instead, he chose to help. He chose to show respect, patience, and concern. She realized that the stories of his ruthlessness only told half the truth. Later that evening, the palace announced a formal reception. Nobles from across the empire gathered to meet the human captain. Whispers ran through the hall. Many still feared him. Lyra's heart beat fast as she entered the room. She expected to see a man who intimidated everyone, who walked like a conqueror. Instead, Jason moved carefully among the guests. He greeted them politely, listened to their concerns, and never spoke harshly. Even when someone tried to provoke him with questions about past battles, he responded calmly, choosing words over threats. Lyra was surprised. She had expected fire, but there was only control. She had expected pride and arrogance, but there was only careful respect. She began to wonder why anyone had called him ruthless. Perhaps strength and control were misunderstood as cruelty. Perhaps humans were more complicated than the Empire's stories had suggested. That night, as the reception ended, Lyra and Jason walked together in the palace garden again. The soft lights reflected on the crystal paths, and the fountains made gentle music. Lyra finally spoke. "I do not understand. The files, the stories, they make humans sound like monsters. But I see you, and you are not that. Jason smiled faintly, a small, tired smile. Humans can be strong, yes. We can be cruel if we want, or if we have no choice. But we can also be loyal, kind, and protective. I have made mistakes in battle, yes. But I try to do what is right. That is all I can do. Lyra nodded slowly. I see that now, but I am still afraid. I have never met a human before. I have only heard stories. Fear is natural, Jason said. You have a right to be cautious. I will not ask you to trust me immediately. I only ask that you watch my actions. I will not fail you. Lyra felt her chest tighten. She realized she was beginning to believe him. Not fully, not yet, but enough to hope. She had imagined a monster, and instead she had found a man who cared. She did not know if she would ever love him, but she knew she could respect him. She knew she could trust him to protect her if needed. They stood in silence for a few moments, watching the lights of the city below. Lyra realized that her fear, though still present, had changed. It was no longer paralyzing. It was tempered with curiosity, with hope, and with the first signs of trust. She wondered what it would be like to see him in a crisis, to see how he acted under real danger. She wondered if the man behind the rumors was truly as brave and careful as he appeared. Jason broke the silence. I know this is all new to you, he said softly. I cannot promise you love or friendship immediately, but I can promise that I will not hurt you. I will respect your choices, and I will protect you and your people. That is all I can do, and it is what I intend to do. Lyra felt a small smile form. She nodded. That is enough for now, she said. We will see how it goes. As they walked back to the palace, Lyra realized that the first step had been taken. The human she had feared, the so-called ruthless warrior, had shown her a side of humanity she had never imagined. Strength, courage, and care could coexist. The rumors of cruelty were only part of the story. She did not know what the future held, but she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe humans were not monsters. Maybe this human, Jason Carter, could be trusted. The night ended with quiet reflection. Lyra returned to her room, thinking about the first meeting, about his careful steps, his soft words, and his respect for her people. She had expected fear and cruelty, but instead she had found patience, courage, and care. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she felt ready to continue learning who he really was. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she felt a sense of possibility.